to bring all of us together talking again. It's time to hear from people who only want to deal with facts. It's time for you to re-engage in America. It's time for Dan and Darrell. Welcome back to Black and White. I'm Dan Perkins, joined now with my partner on the air, Darrell Neely, and we're going to take a few minutes to talk about what's been going on since the last time we chatted with you. We're going to have Horace Cooper in a little bit who's going to talk to us about defunding the police. But I look at over the last weekend, the number of shootings and wounding and in cities all over the country. We've got shooting in New York City in daylight in Times Square. It seems like violence is out of control, and New York City's lost 5,300 policemen. And even if you had policemen, the courts let them out immediately with no bail. So this whole issue of violence in the streets isn't going away. And Joe Biden wants to focus on guns, take away your Second Amendment rights. I think that's crazy. It isn't the guns that kill people, it's people who kill people. I'm amazed that there's no outrage. Darrell, I just can't believe that we're sitting back for how many years in Chicago. We've been watching the weekends with hundreds of people being shot and a number of people dying, and it gets worse and worse. And where is Lightfoot? Is she out of light? I mean, we got the chief of police in Washington, D.C. He's blaming the riots and the shootings on the sale of cannabis. It's crazy, and we've got the Democrats in control of Congress. They're holding the hearing, and Nancy Pelosi refused to give two of the appointees representing the Republican Party to sit on that committee. She said she didn't want them on there because they were too close to Trump. It's amazing to me that we're talking about those kinds of things even today. How Joe Biden ever thought he was going to unite this country is beyond me, because his language and what his people are saying are absolutely counter to what he told us he was going to do. And now they're saying that Kamala is a detriment to the administration because, which is saying something. And so I just find that we're basically screwed up as a country. And it's because we're not allowing people to speak their mind. So Darrell, speak your mind.
I'm trying, Dan. I mean, sometimes I want to cry more than speak. I mean, I look at the news. I understand now why people say about these problems in this country, because it's so depressing. All you hear is death, death, war, death, critical race theory, death, protesting, death. Oh, defund the police. Hold on. Let's think about this literally, people. I mean, honestly. If you defund the police and get rid of them, then lawlessness will occur. Common sense. If you don't have people policing the system, i.e. the city streets, the towns, even our Board of Education meetings, which we really need them at soon, we're going to be a nation without laws eventually. I mean, freedom of speech is almost completely censored and out the door. Say the word freedom of speech and censored. They go hand in hand in the Biden administration. Then you also have the issue of Biden talking about, hey, you know, I got the answer. I'll go to AOC. She'll tell me what to say. Not his vice president. Kamala Harris, she's a laughing stock, a joke. I don't know how you people voted for her. I mean, I don't know who you voted for, because I think the whole crew that was running for the presidential election was a bunch of Democratic idiots or sociopaths. Did I say social? Not sociopaths. Combining both words together so people could understand it. On the other side, we got the death rates in the major cities. Washington, D.C., where I'm at, is, I mean, I don't know. Do we call it murder capital still? I mean, besides all the stick ups, the carjackings, the robberies, the murder, the rapes, the no suicides. I'm impressed, but all the major drug usage. We have issues here in this city, and we need Joe Biden to clean them up. I'm sorry, Dan, I can't be serious with that one. Because if Joe was trying to clean something up, like he said in that one snippet that people caught, I was listening to him. He said, I just got wiped. I'm sorry, Joe. 25th Amendment on Joe Biden yesterday.
Yeah.
It should have.
I'm amazed, quite honestly, Darrell, at how quickly after January 20th, things absolutely fell apart.
Stock market.
And it's a lack, to me, it's a lack of leadership and direction, and sending incredible, time and time again, indicating that the administration and the president didn't know what they're doing or what they're talking about. And yet there is a sense of complacency. And I think that one of the reasons why there's complacency out there is because, as you said a moment ago, people's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech have been attacked, and millions upon millions of people have withdrawn from the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we want them back into the conversation, and that's why we're going to play this little message for you from joining us on America's Soapbox. This is Dan Perkins, co-host of Black and White, and I want to tell you about a new service we are offering our listeners we want to give it back to you. Join the conversation again by stepping on the American Soapbox and tell America what you think about the issues that are confronting America. blackandwhites.us/America's Soapbox. The rules are simple. Not longer than 3 minutes, no attacks, racial or others, on other people, and no uncivilized language. Think about what is bothering you. Then get out your camcorder or your smartphone, write a script, push the record button. Check that you comply with all the rules, and if you think you do, log on to blacksandwhites.us/America's Soapbox and upload the link to your message. Check back with us in a few days and see if it's available for everybody in America to watch. Tell your friends and family the American Soapbox. I'm Dan Perkins. This is Dan Perkins, co-host of Black and White Radio and TV. We started these programs to dramatically increase a civil and respectful dialogue on significant issues confronting America. We are seeking business leaders, heads of corporations, and individuals who agree with us. We have to change the conversation in America. If you want to put your company in a leadership position of rebuilding the conversation in America on important issues in a fair and respectful way, then become a corporate sponsor of Black and White shows. Demonstrate your desire to lead the country in rebuilding the conversation and click on the Make America Talk Again button. Welcome back to Black and White. Joining us today is a distinguished person who we believe is going to be a tremendous asset to us and is an asset to the country, but an asset to our show. The gentleman is Horace Cooper. He is a writer and a legal commentator. He's appeared on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and a variety of other print publications. He is also a research fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research, a senior fellow with the Heartland Institute, and a director of law and regulation at the Institute of Liberty. Mr. Cooper, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on today.
My pleasure. And our pleasure. We're going to learn a lot from you. We asked you onto the show because there seems to be a lot of discussion of police. The Democrats are now saying, well, they don't support defunding the police. And I'm reminded of John Kerry when he voted for it, that before he voted against it and voted for it again. So can you please help us understand what the issue here is in defunding the police is?
So very, very pronounced radicals, they call themselves progressives, have targeted law enforcement, not because law enforcement actually has any particular record of mistreatment or abuse of any segment of America. The theory is that somehow law enforcement targets black men in particular, but minorities in general, and offers not to give the kinds of quality service that the Constitution dictates. The storyline is that they are targeted, they are mistreated, and as a consequence are disproportionately incarcerated. The evidence shows that that is actually not true. Many studies indicate that what we witness is a shift where law enforcement has actually pulled back whenever they are encountering minorities, in particular black men, except when exigent circumstances arise, and are more likely, as a consequence, to use deadly force when they are dealing with white men and non-black men generally. But this serves a very, very useful purpose, and that narrative is we absolutely need to discredit what most Americans rely upon for protecting our assets. The wealthiest among us have the resources to protect their assets. If you're Bill Gates, your biggest problem is not home invasion, getting your stereo taken, having your wife's purse snatched. That's not your big problem. You travel with private security. Your places where you live are completely protected. Even in the neighborhood, have permission to come to the neighborhood, even if they're not coming to see you, may travel through your neighborhood. What most Americans experience is something entirely different. They don't live behind a gate. They don't have private security. They're fortunate if they can afford an alarm system, and they therefore rely upon law enforcement to see to it that most of the people around them continue to abide by the rules of respect and decorum, and the left is attempting to attack. They would actually, because they believe if you own assets, if you have property, if you have any modicum of wealth, you didn't actually earn in a legitimate way. It is a consequence of some other person who doesn't have assets, who doesn't have wealth, that was exploited to get it. And that's their ultimate goal. But we're just concerned about mistreatment of a subset of Americans is just the pretext for getting us to a chaotic world where suddenly the kinds of rules and norms that everyone takes for granted no longer exist, and the things that really are radical, such as dramatic transfers of wealth and assets. That's what's actually going on.
Horace, what I have observed, and I would certainly love to hear your last summer into the fall, and in some areas still continuing, the riots were on attacking the black community and black community businesses and destroying them. And yet the black community, based on many, many different surveys, between 70 and 80% of the black community want the police in their neighborhood. They're not in favor of defunding. But these people that have got the narrative seem to be discounting what the black community wants. Number saying is what Barack Obama said when talked about how we acquire wealth.
You didn't build that.
Thank you. You didn't build that. Is that the genesis of what you're saying?
Oh, yes. So here's the point. Couple things. First observation is if you're going to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. So the fact that all of this disarray and destruction happens in the black community, that's just the price to pay to get to where they want to get. But let's go backwards in time. It was dangerous when President Obama indicated that when a person took pride in their accomplishments and their achievements, that he could declare that they weren't deserving of that pride and accomplishment, that instead society had done it. That was dangerous. Now we're seeing a little bit more of what that really could look like. But the genesis of all of this actually goes back to the 1960s. There is a reason that the term capitalist pig came about, and the reason that law enforcement was tagged as pigs. It isn't a coincidence that those who consume and produce and privately interact with one another were castigated as capitalist pigs, and that the people whose job it was to protect our assets and to protect our property were referred as pigs. The idea is to really move us to a point where there is so much disarray, so much decay, so much disturbance that we'll be open to changing the narrative. California is already now moving rapidly toward this idea of a monthly payment protocol where people are paid a living wage regardless of whether they seek work or not. This has been an idea that the left has been trying to push for some time. The only way you can accomplish this, however, is you have to take from the people who are willing to work, who are willing to struggle, and who are willing to achieve and create, so that you can then give to those who won't. But you can't get there if you just have everything quiet and normal, because it's pretty obvious when you ask Americans, just like black Americans are the highest group in favor of more law enforcement, Americans in general, when asked, should you be given assistance in payment when you refuse to work, that is a 65 to 75% issue with Americans, depending on the surveyor. 65 to 75% of Americans say no, you should not be compensated if you refuse a working opportunity. It's supposed to be for an emergency. It's supposed to be for short term. That's what Americans embrace. The left want exactly the opposite. Now, they believe that we could walk to the edge of the branch. It's straining and straining and straining, and then we could air, and all of us can receive payments, all of us can receive checks, all of us can continue, and none of us would have to work. That's a theory. It has never worked anywhere it's been tried. But if you really look at what is going on, defund the police is a critical cog in the effort to move us into this space.
Horace, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Darrell Neely, and he's going to have some questions for you. Darrell?
Brother, you are on fire, and I'm giving you the credit that you deserve. It's just pure fire, and I'm loving this, because this defunding the police is an atrocity for America. Now, my question for you would be, with all the public policies that are trying to be enacted, do you see defunding the police going into, how should we say, the liberal territories where they can actually make their own quote-unquote mafias
in places like Portland, and to some degree even in a place like Minneapolis. But we're already seeing a dramatic reduction in the ability of law enforcement to be able to do its activities. And in its place, there cannot just be a vacuum. Something has to fill the void. In its place are these hybrid forces that operate. In New York City, before Mayor Giuliani became the law and order mayor and ultimately America's mayor, what you saw were even the mob to enforce whatever their rules were, and everybody else simply had to abide by it. Increasingly, and this is the point of the decay and disarray, increasingly, when those groups get out of control, people are going to want to accept whatever the other radical solutions that are put forth. My point in my interviews is to explain, don't go to the people that created this problem for your neighborhood, your community, your state, and then let them offer a functioning, successful, and thriving society operates on a standard principle. There absolutely must be accountability for bad behavior, for good behavior. Any society that says we will no longer have accountability for bad behavior and no longer have accountability for good behavior will get dramatically more bad behavior and dramatically less good behavior. We see this in Venezuela. We are seeing people in Cuba stand up and talk about it, but they felt it for a long time. Millions and millions of people in mainland China tell us this. Hong Kong protesters explain this. And yet, what we hear in America on our college campuses is, well, this just hasn't been properly practiced. Oh, we just haven't done it the right way. This is the goal way to do it. This is our objective. It's just that there are these other places where personalities have gotten in the way. Absolutely, we should not trust the very people who have created this problem to help us see our way out of this problem.
Well, do you see the indoctrination of the people, the possibility for this new defund the police ideology? I mean, when I look at it, I'm looking at it from the Seattle, Washington, and Kenosha standpoint. Now, they had the youth going out there rioting, raising ruckus, and the American public literally sat back and watched on national TV. Well, that's the one good thing I can say about mainstream media. Burn down buildings, hit people in the head, kill people, ... This defunding of the police is going to enact more. But what do you see the end result if it does go through?
Okay, a couple things. One is we should all be mindful that to be isn't always what it is, and I'll tell you why. If you have a crime wave, what it appears to be is that every single person is engaging in mayhem and rioting and looting. The truth is, and the truth has always been this, a subgroup of people engage in all of the rioting and mayhem and looting. One of the things that we uncovered, and we've had to uncover it a couple times, but one of the things that we uncovered in New York City is all of a sudden when you're behind bars, and maybe we only caught you for jumping the turnstile, maybe we only caught you for vandalism and spray painting, but when you're behind bars, you're not able to snatch grandma's purse. You're not able to break in someone's house and rape. You can't do the drug delivery. Similarly, this summer, a small subgroup of people do all of the looting, do all of the rioting, and engage in all of the mayhem. They leave the rest of us with the impression that this is the norm that we're now going to have. Our junior high schools and our colleges are regularly encouraging our young people to see that what I tell you is true, and that is a very small subset. It's not 10%. It's certainly not half. It's not 5% of us that are going around raping, robbing, and doing the mayhem. And yet our young people are told that all of this bad behavior is justified, and it is manifest broadly among society. And so it isn't just defund the police. It's critical race theory. It's this idea that America, at its core, is rotten and evil and is a place where anyone who has succeeded has done so at the expense of another. Now, that completely contradicts the understanding of capitalism. And by the way, we're not supposed to say capitalism. People hate that word. The whole idea of capitalism is you do something voluntarily for someone else, and they voluntarily compensate you for that. Two people are happier when occurs. The opposite of that is you do something involuntarily for someone else, and then someone else receives something whether they wanted it or not. And guess what? Two people are often unhappy as a result of that. Our schools are telling people that America is rotten to the core. How many of our students are told that when the original 13 colonies actually said, we want to ban the importation of new slaves, we want to tax the use of slave power and activity inside our country, we want to place sharp limits, that King George actually said, if you do, I'll veto it. And if you do it again, I'll disband your colonial legislature. How many of our students were never told that states like Delaware, states like even Virginia, were either had their colony legislature disbanded or their acts vetoed? How many were told that? Because we're told that racism is part and parcel of what America is. That's a lie, and yet that's part of the left's narrative that is part and parcel of defund the police.
Horace, we made a promise to your agent that we would take you 20 minutes, and we're right there. What we both, Darrell and I, have probably a ton of questions. We'd like to invite you to come back again as soon as we can arrange it. It's been insightful, and I was thrilled to have you on the show. We've been speaking with Horace Cooper, who is a writer and a legal commentator. He's appeared on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and a variety of print publications. He is also the Research Fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research, a Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute, and Director of Law and Regulation at the Institute of Liberty. Mr. Cooper, thank you so much for sharing your intellect and your ideas.
Thanks for having me on.
This is Dan Perkins, co-host of Black and White, and I want to tell you about a new service we are offering our listeners who have seen their freedom of speech taken away. We want to give it back to you. Join the conversation again by stepping on the American soapbox and tell America what you think about the issues that are confronting America. Join the conversation. It's free. Go to blackandwhites.us/America's Soapbox. The rules are simple. Not longer than 3 minutes, no attacks, racial or other, on other people, and no uncivilized language. Think about what is bothering you. Then get out your camcorder or your smartphone, write a script, push the record button. Check that you comply with all the rules, and if you think you do, log on to blacksandwhites.us/America's Soapbox and upload the link to your message. Check back with us in a few days and see if it's available for everybody in America to watch. Tell your friends and family to take their turn on the American Soapbox. I'm Dan Perkins. This is Dan Perkins, co-host of Black and White Radio and TV. We started these programs to dramatically increase a civil and respectful dialogue on significant issues confronting America. We are seeking business leaders, heads of corporations, and individuals who agree with us. We have to change the conversation in America. If you want to put your company in a leadership position of rebuilding the conversation in America on important issues in a fair and respectful way, then become a corporate sponsor of Black and White shows. Demonstrate your desire to lead the country in rebuilding the conversation and click on the Make America Talk Again button. Thanks for joining us today on Black and White. If you missed any of this terrific interview, you can hear it and many more by going to blacksandwhites.us, click on the archive section,